The Princess Bride contains a few elements that, when watching it as an adult, make you tilt your head and go, wait, what? Even if you love the film, as so many people do, here are some of the weird things in The Princess Bride that you only notice as an adult.
Have fun storming the castle!
Perhaps you're one of the eagle-eyed few that first noticed this as a child, but most of us gloss right over the fact that The Princess Bride is set during the Christmas season. Santa Claus decorations are scattered throughout the grandson's messy room, most notably the one hanging behind the grandfather on the closet door. Plus, there's a tabletop tree decorated with lights visible through the bedroom door. And when the mother throws open the grandson's curtains, a snow-covered rooftop lined with lights can be spotted outside the window. Even the Princess Bride book itself is a Christmas gift. It's given to the grandson wrapped in cheery Santa paper. At first glance, there's nothing amiss about the scene in which Buttercup tries to escape from Vizzini, Fezzik, and Inigo Montoya by jumping off their ship and attempting to swim to safety. She starts to swim to the unidentified ship in the distance, but stops when she hears the screeches of the shrieking eels. Vizzini offers her the chance to swim back to safety. Then Fezzik clunks the eel on top of its head with a bowling ball-sized fist and scoops a shaken but uninjured Buttercup up out of the water. Everything in the scene tracks until you realize that Buttercup never actually swam back to the boat. She swam away for a few solid strokes, putting her about half a pool length away from the boat, but then she just fearfully treaded water until Fezzik punched the eel and pulled her back into the ship. Since the boat apparently never changed course, the only way for the scene to have happened is if Fezzik's arms suddenly stretched to a ridiculously long length of probably at least 8 feet. He might be a giant, but he's not that much of a giant. This is probably just a continuity error, but it's fun to imagine an explanation, isn't it? Vizzini's plan once his boat reaches the Cliffs of Insanity is simple. Fezzik will carry his party up the sheer face of the cliffs using the rope dangling down from the top, and then they'll press on into Gilder, kill Buttercup, and start a war. When they arrive at the base of the cliffs, a triumphant Vizzini proclaims that it doesn't matter that the ship behind them has nearly caught up with them. As he explains,
"Only Fezzik is strong enough to go up our way. He'll have to sail around for hours till he finds a harbor."
Except the fact that the rope is there implies that Vizzini has already been to this location and tied the rope at the top to prepare for this part of the plan. To do that, he probably used the very harbor he's claiming the other ship can't possibly know about. What's more, the castle ruins at the top seem to imply that at one point this was a well-traveled destination, meaning that the location of the harbor shouldn't be such a mystery. This raises 2 questions. 1, why didn't Vizzini just use the harbor to begin with since he clearly knew where it was? And 2, why would he assume no one else had that knowledge? Everything about the Cliffs of Insanity sequence in The Princess Bride is undeniably thrilling, from the race up the face of the cliffs to Westley's ability to cling to the rocks instead of falling. However, when you consider the shots of Westley climbing mere seconds before Vizzini slices the rope, it doesn't make sense that he was able to grab onto the rock face in the moment he felt the rope begin to slip. Westley would have had to swing on the rope and jump onto the rocks to have a chance at winding up in the position we eventually find him in. Even if there was enough time for him to have done this between shots, why would he? He was making much better time on the rope than he does on the rocks. As an additional layer of mystery, how did Wesley's boots become so full of rocks once he reached the top? In every shot we saw of Westley climbing the rope, his legs were kicking freely in the open air, far from the rocks. What was he doing in the few seconds when the camera wasn't on him that not only enabled him to grab onto the rock face, but fill his boots with stones? We may never know. When Westley eventually reaches the tops of the Cliffs of Insanity, Inigo graciously offers him a chance to catch his breath before they start their duel. While this seems motivated by honor, Inigo may have also had a selfish motive. Shortly before this moment, Inigo tells Vizzini that he'll be fighting left-handed in order to make the duel last longer. Allowing Westley time to recover may have been in service of the same goal, with Inigo finding little satisfaction and using up less time besting a winded opponent. However, there's another indication of Inigo's sense of honor in this scene, one which could have proven deadly. By telling the story of his father's murder, Inigo hands Westley his only weapon without hesitation before their duel. If Westley had less integrity than Inigo, he could have killed him right then and there while he was unarmed and defenseless. That it didn't seem to occur to either swordsman to behave less than honorably in this moment speaks volumes about the kinds of characters they are, and it's why we root for both of them. As a child, it may have been difficult to make out every line of dialogue during Fezzik's fight with Westley, given that both participants spend most of the scene significantly exerting themselves and occasionally choking. However, if you can catch all of Fezzik's lines, you may be left wanting a lot more information about his life before he came to work for Vizzini. At first, when Fezzik offers to fight Westley in hand-to-hand combat, he explains that he hates for people to die embarrassed. Just who has Fezzik seen die embarrassed, and what exactly was his role in their deaths? He also tells Westley, when explaining why he's had so much trouble fighting a single opponent, that he's more used to groups, specifically battling gangs for charity. It's hard to simply skate past the fact that Fezzik's past seems to have included significant mercenary work for neighborhood nonprofits. While no one wants a Princess Bride remake, we wouldn't turn up our noses at a prequel exploring precisely which causes these local charities in Greenland were championing that required them to have their own one-man brute squad. The Battle of Wits, in which Vizzini talks in circles until finally dying mid-triumphant laugh from a sip of iocane-poisoned wine, is one of the most iconic scenes in a film made up almost entirely of iconic scenes. So it's easy to miss that the picnic laid out in front of Vizzini makes almost no sense. Vizzini wasn't carrying anything when he departed the boat and took the Fezzik elevator up the cliffs of insanity, and he didn't appear to have any supplies waiting for him at the top. So where did he get the 2 goblets, bottle of wine, 2 apples, block of cheese, hunk of bread, and a cheese knife, not to mention the tablecloth it was all laid out on? Did he just have it all set up on a random rock ready to go? And if so, why? Was Vizzini somehow so clever that he knew in advance that Westley would beat his enforcers and join him for lunch? If so, we suppose he was right after all. We really shouldn't go up against a Sicilian when death is on the line.
Death cannot stop true love.
Is one of the most quotable lines in The Princess Bride, but when you think about it, it's not a very reasonable mantra to live by. When Westley asks why Buttercup didn't wait for him, she responds very practically that he was dead. Remember, he was gone for 5 entire years and pronounced dead at some point during that time. Knowing that her chance to marry for love died with Westley, Buttercup instead agreed to an arranged marriage with a prince. However, according to Westley, she should have kept right on waiting for him despite his years-long absence and legally declared death. According to his logic, the only course of action acceptable for a woman who's lost a partner is to remain faithful forever and unmarried for the rest of her life. Put like that, it's a wonder that Buttercup didn't drag him up that hill just so she could push him back down again. Probably one of the most memorable scenes in The Princess Bride is Buttercup's nightmare of being publicly booed for the choices she's made throughout the film, such as her agreement to marry Humperdinck if Wesley's life is spared. Buttercup is plagued by the fear that she's done the wrong thing. And as a child, it's easy to agree with her, swept up in the romantic notion that she should have dug in her heels and refused to compromise her ideals. But as an adult, it's easier to see that Buttercup may be unfairly maligned. Throughout the film, Buttercup shows a lot of courage, keeping her cool throughout multiple abductions, repeatedly refusing to be bulldozed by the powerful Prince Humperdinck, and suggesting strategies to resolve conflict that would minimize bloodshed. As a woman from a modest farm, Buttercup wouldn't hold much power, but she uses what leverage she does have to selflessly strike a bargain that she believes will keep Westley safe at great cost to herself. It's only once she believes she secured Wesley's freedom that she finally unleashes her true opinions on Humperdinck. At last, she pushes back against his dismissal of her.
Yes, I am a silly girl, for not having seen sooner that you were nothing but a coward with a heart full of fear.
All hail Queen Buttercup indeed. When Inigo gets the idea to ask Westley to help him plan his castle attack to find and kill Count Rugen, he and Fezzik follow Wesley's screams to the grove hiding the entrance to the Pit of Despair. There they encounter the Albino, Rugen's minion who maintains the pit in his absence. Inigo asks the Albino where they can find the man in black, but the Albino seems too shaken to say anything. Inigo asks Fezzik to jog his memory, and Fezzik gives the Albino a heavy blow on top of the head. The Albino collapses into his wheelbarrow, and Fezzik apologizes for hitting him too hard. Watching this scene as a kid, it's easy to assume Fezzik merely knocked the Albino out, but watching it as an adult, it becomes clear that the Albino is likely dead. The blow he takes to the head looks extremely forceful, and his eyes remain open as he keels over. Even if the Albino didn't die right away, Fezzik and Inigo leave him there without medical attention, making it likely that the severe head trauma he suffered would eventually lead to death. After spending the whole film building up to it, Inigo Montoya's final showdown with Count Rugen is nothing short of spectacular. It's got a chase scene that spans much of the castle, a moment of devastating doubt when Rugen catches Inigo in the stomach with a throw dagger, and more. It all builds to a thrill of tremendous triumph when Inigo rallies and kills Count Rugen, repeatedly shouting the line he's been preparing to deliver since he was 11.
Hello! My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die!
After Count Rugen dies, Inigo heads off to find the rest of his group, and he's offered the position of Dread Pirate Roberts by Westley before the 4 heroes head off on white horses. But chances are good that Inigo would never live to explore an exciting new career in piracy. He suffered precisely the same wounds as Count Rugen, which proved fatal for the Six-Fingered Man. Inigo managed to win his duel, but it was likely adrenaline that allowed him to ignore his wounds and keep fighting. Once the foursome was out of danger and Inigo's adrenaline wore off, he likely tumbled off his white horse and died of blood loss. Trust us, we don't want this any more than you do. Being an adult is hard. Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more Looper videos about your favorite movies are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.